Good evening and welcome. My name is Michael Plasha. I'm the director of Plasha Yoga Studio in Erie. And this is a program called Mindfulness for Life. What is mindfulness? A basic definition is mindfulness is paying attention in each present moment without judgment. Now, how might this reduce stress? When we're in the present moment, that's going to reduce the stress that we might experience from worrying about the future. Something that can't even happen yet will create stress if we worry about it, or we create a story in our heads about something that may never even happen. And then if we're dwelling on the past, especially unhappy memories or difficult, uncomfortable memories, that can also create stress. Now, even in the present moment, we can experience a lot of stress, right? Based on our situation and external conditions and circumstances. Now, the working definition of stress is that it's not the external event, but it's our internal response or reaction to the event that creates stress. However, even though it's not that external event, it can seem very real. So we have to learn how to be aware of external stressors in a way that we can respond to them with poise and balance instead of just stressing out over them. Mindfulness is a real key to that, because it's teaching us how to be in the present moment in a non-judgmental way. Being aware, but also being aware of not reacting to what we're experiencing, and instead responding to it. So it's teaching us over time how to be in a place of neutrality or non-reactive awareness. This is the gift of mindfulness, and we can incorporate it in every moment of our lives. And in addition to reducing stress, it helps us to experience life to its fullest. Because I can be in the present moment, let's say riding my bicycle, but if I'm on automatic pilot, thinking about the past or the future, or analyzing the present moment, I'm not even in the present moment. My mind is elsewhere. So mindfulness is also teaching us to get out of our heads, to move from thinking mind, if you will, into feeling and sensing mind, so that we can experience life to its fullest. Think about that fine meal that you just really, really enjoy, and you're tasting each morsel of the meal, enjoying all the sensory pleasures to their fullest. That's mindfulness in a way. Traditional mindfulness is turning that same kind of attention and appreciation within ourselves. So let's try it. This is called the mindfulness-based check-in for emotional balance. So first, check your posture. Head above heart, heart above hips, spine erect. Try not to slouch. When we do that, typically energy goes down. And then bring the awareness within. You can close your eyes, or if that's uncomfortable, have your eyes slightly parted with a soft gaze towards the floor, or if you're seated on the floor like I am, towards your lap if you're in a cross-legged position. And you want to make sure you're sitting comfortably, whatever you need to do. You might need to elevate the hips a little bit with a firm cushion, or even sit in a chair. Again, with the back straight and the spine erect. So bring the awareness within. And in the spirit of non-judgmental, compassionate self-awareness, mindfulness, become aware of your physical body in this moment. Notice if your physical body feels strong or weak, energized or tired, comfortable or uncomfortable. And now go to the place where you tend to hold discomfort. Common areas can be the neck, the jaw, the shoulders, the lower back. You can go to the familiar place, or if there's a different place that has your attention, then go to that particular site. And then give it a number between 1 and 10. 1 being very subtle discomfort. You didn't even notice it until I brought it up. 10 would be strong or intense discomfort, what we would typically describe as pain. So give that a number, somewhere between 1 and 10. Now become aware of your physical energy, and on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very little, you didn't even want to get up. 10 being a lot of energy, maybe you feel a bit hyper, restless, knees are bouncing, foot is tapping. Give yourself a number between 1 and 10. Now become aware of the mind and aware of your mental energy on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very slow, molasses-like thinking. And if it's about the past, that can suggest mild depression. 10, racing mind, monkey mind is what we call it in yoga. And if it's about the future, that can suggest mild anxiety. And give yourself a number somewhere between 1 and 10. Now become aware of your overall mental emotional state. And in a moment, choose a word that might best describe it. Some examples might include happy, sad, grieving, hopeful, discouraged, cloudy, clear, calm, anxious, agitated, serene, or something else. Take a moment to choose a word that might best describe your overall mental and emotional state. And we'll circle back to this check-in to see if any of our practices have made any changes. Now, mindfulness is based on a talk that the Buddha gave called The Four Foundations of Mindfulness. Now, we don't have to be a Buddhist to practice mindfulness. It's become a very popular secular practice. In fact, Representative Tim Ryan, a congressman from Ohio, wrote a book called A Mindful Nation. And he is a strong advocate for mindfulness because he feels that if it's incorporated into healthcare and government and education, that it can make a very positive difference in not only the quality of life, for everybody, but also the cost of healthcare, for example. And that's one example of how mindfulness has become commonplace. But the roots of it are in this talk the Buddha gave called the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. And the first foundation is mindfulness of breathing. The second foundation is mindfulness of feeling, aka sensations. Like, what am I feeling in the body? Where am I feeling it? And then ultimately, do I have a judgment related to what I'm feeling? We'll explore this later. Third foundation is mindfulness of the mind in a general way, which you just got a sense of when you chose a word to best describe your overall mental emotional state. And then the fourth foundation is mindfulness of mental formations. And what that means is specifically what's happening in the mind. The intention behind all of this is to help us gain insight in how we might be mentally conditioned to respond or to react in each moment of our lives. So let's get started. And we'll start with the basic practice of mindfulness of breathing. So again, you can close your eyes or keep them slightly parted with a soft gaze down. Now become aware of your natural breath. Try not to control, manipulate, or direct the breath in any way. Allow it to unfold naturally by itself. And become aware of where you're feeling the breath the most, the location. Now be open to this location changing. Try not to perhaps cling on to where you initially feel the breath. One thing we discover in mindfulness is that life is impermanent. Everything is changing. The body changes, the mind changes, the breath is changing, sensations are changing, the weather changes, and everything else in our lives. Now, this impermanence is considered not a problem unless we're attached to it not changing. Then that can create some stress or tension. So if I'm attached to the weather being a certain way, then I'm probably going to suffer because the weather will change. And that's just a metaphor for virtually everything in life. So just pay attention to the breath. Each in-breath and each out-breath can be as unique as a snowflake. You might notice the location in the abdomen or the rib cage, perhaps the middle chest or upper chest up near the collarbones. You may primarily feel the breath in the throat or the nostrils. You might feel it in a couple places, but there will probably be a primary location. And again, be open to that changing. Now, the mind will invariably wander. That's its nature. The mind changes. Thoughts change all the time. So when you notice you've left the breath, that's really considered the practice. Being aware that we've left the object of our meditation, the breath. In fact, the famous meditation teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, that's a miracle of mindfulness. Why? Because we're awake enough to notice that we've left the breath. Perhaps we're caught up in a train of thoughts or some other distraction. It might be sounds, sensations. You might feel your lower back aching. It's easy to get caught up in that. Then we start thinking about it. We might start judging it. And now we're really caught up in several challenges, sensations, thinking, and maybe even emotions. We get upset that our back hurts. So just try to stay with the breath, and when it wanders, just note not breath and return to the breath. We're training the mind to try to stay in one place. The yogis like to say that the mind is never in the present moment, or rarely is, but the breath always is. So we ground ourselves in the present moment with the breath. It's as simple as that. And this has been practiced for thousands of years. And for some meditators, this is their practice that they do every day, 15 to 30 minutes, 1 to 3 times a day, every day of their life. So I'm going to leave you in silence for a few minutes, just paying attention to the breath, the location, noting not breath is needed, and returning to the breath. Continue to focus on the breath, but to perhaps make it more interesting, more engaging, start to notice any sensations related to the breath. Now we're moving into that second foundation, mindfulness of feelings. So depending on the location, you might notice sensations, and maybe you already have, of rising and falling, or expanding and contracting, or expanding and relaxing. like in the rib cage or the abdomen. You might notice sensations where the breath feels warm or cool, dry or moist, short or long, shallow or deep, slow, moderate or fast. So you might notice the rhythm of the breath, the texture, the temperature, the movement. And there might be subtle differences with the inhalations and the exhalations. So continue with mindfulness of breathing, including location, and now sensations. Now, if you're noting not breath often, where even noticing sensations is not enough to keep you engaged, then an alternative strategy that's recommended is counting the breath. There's many counting techniques, counting forward, counting backwards, counting in various ways. And I'll share a basic one that's effective. So you stay with the breath and now hone in on one place, the rim of the nostrils. So instead of the location being somewhat diffuse, it might move around, which can be harder to stay with. Just focus right at the rim of the nostrils. You'll feel cool air flow in, warm air flow out. That can be helpful for focusing. And then you can begin to count the breath as follows: inhaling 1, exhaling 2, inhaling 3, exhaling 4, etc., until you reach 10. Then start over, or if you lose your count, then start over. Have most of your awareness on feeling the movement of the breath and the sensation of it. A bit of awareness on the counting. And once you get the hang of it, we don't have to mentally say inhaling and exhaling each time. We're just aware of the direction. So let's try that now, if you need to. If you're able to stay in the present moment with breath and being aware of sensations, continue with that for a couple more minutes. Otherwise, try counting the breath and see if that's helpful. And continue. And now let go of counting. Leave your breathing. Observe how you feel. And just take a moment to open up your field of awareness to include whatever arises in your consciousness. It might be thoughts, sounds, emotions, sensations. Just let them pass by without becoming involved. Just observe and try not to react to what you're observing. You might notice a subtle preference that you like or dislike what you're observing. That's common. And that can give us some insight into how we're conditioned to relate to life in each present moment. Now bring the awareness back to the breath. Mindfulness of breathing. Inhaling, I know I'm inhaling. Exhaling, I know I'm exhaling. Then bring your awareness back to our space. Notice if you feel more calm, more grounded. And we're going to continue with a wonderful practice called the body scan. There's different ones. Some can last up to an hour. The challenge there is to stay awake. It's easy to fall asleep. The intention of the body scan is to help us to accept our bodies in a non-judgmental way and to be present to whatever's happening in the body. Again, we can be conditioned to be attracted to certain sensations in the body and have an aversion towards others. In body scans, we're really trying to develop a more positive relationship with the body. So there's a saying in the East that pain is an inevitable part of life, not only physical pain, but emotional pain. But suffering is optional. So how we relate to the pain is very subjective. You might have heard the old adage, one man's pain is another man's pleasure. So it's subjective. And then the intensity that we might observe with pain is also very subjective. One person barely gets a bump and they start yelling and screaming. Another person gets the exact same bump and they hardly even notice it. So typically that's just due to our past conditioning. Now for the body scan, you can either do this seated, or if you prefer, you could lie down. We'll only do this for about less than 15 minutes. Again, though, the intention is to stay awake. And I'll lead you through a basic one for you to get a sense of this practice. So check your posture, choose what you'd like to do, either sitting up or lying down. And if you're lying down, you might consider placing a thin, firm cushion under the head to support the neck. And then make any adjustments so you feel comfortable. And then bring the awareness within, close the eyes. And bring your awareness down to the feet. Start to scan the feet, the toes, in between the toes, the arches, the tops of the feet, the heels. Just noticing any sensations. Do the feet feel tight or loose, tense, soft, warm, cool, dry, clammy, tingly, numb? No sensation is a sensation. And then notice the degree of intensity. Is it mild, moderate, or strong? And while you're scanning the feet and other parts of the body in a moment, just notice if you have any subtle preferences. You prefer the feet to feel this way or that way. Again, this is common. And keep in mind what we're doing here with the body scan is it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for how we're conditioned to perceive life, and including our likes and dislikes. Do you like broccoli? Do you dislike broccoli? Is your like or dislike mild, medium, or strong? Can we be in a place of neutrality with our feet or with broccoli or anything else in life where we aren't reacting? We're observing, we're noticing maybe our reaction, but we aren't reacting to our reaction. And we're being curious and open. And maybe being open to experiencing something that we had an aversion towards in the past, but now we're open to trying it again, exploring it. So finish up scanning the feet, and then direct a slow, intentional breath into the feet. And as you exhale, just imagine and feel the feet are relaxing. Now begin to scan the legs. Ankles, shins, calves, the whole of the knees, the whole of the thighs. Just noticing any sensations there and the level of intensity. Try not to push anything away or hold on to what's there. It is what it is. Now direct a slow, intentional breath into the legs. And as you exhale, imagine and feel the legs relaxing. Now begin to scan the hips, the buttocks, the pelvis. Noticing any sensations there, including no sensations or numbness. Notice the level of intensity. Now direct a slow, intentional breath into those areas. And as you exhale, imagine and feel that they're relaxing. Now begin to scan the abdomen and the chest. The sides of the trunk. Now scan the back of the trunk, the lower back, the middle back, the shoulder blades, and the upper back. Direct a slow, intentional breath into the whole of the trunk. And as you exhale, imagine all those areas relaxing. Now bring the awareness to the hands and scan the fingers, in between the fingers, the palms, and the back of the hands. Direct a slow, intentional breath into the hands. And as you exhale, imagine and feel them relaxing. Now begin to scan the arms, the wrists, the forearms, the elbows, and the upper arms. Direct a slow, intentional breath into the arms. And as you exhale, imagine and feel that they're relaxing. Now scan the shoulders, another place we can hold some sensations. Be thorough, the front, the top, the back of the shoulders. Direct a slow, intentional breath into the shoulders. And as you exhale, imagine them relaxing. Now scan the neck, the front, the sides, the back of the neck. Direct a slow, intentional breath into the neck. And exhale, imagine it relaxing. Now scan the face, be thorough. The chin, the jaw, the mouth, the nose, the eyes, the cheeks, the ears, the temples, and the forehead. Direct an intentional breath into those areas. As you exhale, imagine them relaxing. Now scan the head, the sides, the back, the top of the head, the scalp. Direct an intentional breath into those areas. And as you exhale, imagine them relaxing. Now go to that place that you identified at the start of the program during our check-in for emotional balance as a site of discomfort, and you gave it a number. Go back to that spot. Notice the level of intensity now. And what number might you give it? Is it the same or different from before? Now, to complete the body scan, just observe your body from top to toe, toe to top. Notice how the body feels. What did you learn about yourself? Did you have an attraction or aversion to any sensations that you experienced? And what was it like to be in the body at this level? Some of these practices, like body scans and the check-in for emotional balance, can be difficult to do. It's common to live in our heads. And if we live in our heads, it's hard to know what's going on in our bodies unless something intense happens, whether it's pleasure or pain. Then it gets our attention. Otherwise, we might not even know we have a body. We're just living in our heads. But with regular practice, it gets easier. Now take a moment if you need to, just stretch out your legs. Maybe give yourself a little stretch. And we're going to continue with a seated practice. So if you're relying on the floor, please sit up now and check your posture. Again, it's important when we're seated for meditation that the head, shoulders, hips are in alignment, the spine is erect. Otherwise, energy will go down when we start to slump or slouch. Then it's hard to stay awake. So the two major challenges to any type of meditation is what we call thinking or sinking. So obviously thinking, we're getting distracted, getting caught up in thoughts, trains of thoughts. Off we go. 15 minutes later, the bell rings and oh my gosh, what just happened? Where did I go? The other dilemma is sinking, which is getting spacey or sleepy, sometimes just dull. And we're supposed to avoid that at all costs. So what to do? Well, we always have to pick some object of meditation that's going to be interesting, engaging. Counting can help. So the goal is to have a calm, alert mind, a mind that's focused, but a mind that's also quiet. This can be a real process for many of us. We may just, in a 30-minute meditation, have that for a few minutes. So we want to be gentle with ourselves and not judge ourselves. In meditation, we like to say that the only bad meditation is not meditating. So just the act of meditation, just sitting, is the practice. And just being open to whatever happens. So I'll take you through a traditional mindfulness meditation now. Close your eyes again and start out with focusing on the natural breath at the rim of the nostrils. Feel the cool air flow in and the warm air flow out. Now to stabilize the mind a bit more, let's try another counting technique. This time we're going to count the breath backwards from 50 towards 1 as follows. Inhaling 50, exhaling 49, inhaling 48, exhaling 47, and so on. If you lose your count, then start over. Have most of your awareness again on feeling the movement of the breath and a little bit on the counting. And you can begin this practice now for about a minute or so. Now let go of counting. Return to the breath at the rim of the nostrils. When the mind wanders, note with a little bit of awareness what pulled you away. The main categories are thoughts, so you would just label or note thinking. If it's a sound, listening. If it's a sensation, sensing. If it's an emotion, feeling. And then let it go and go back to the breath. So we're trying to gain some insight into certain patterns that are probably with us throughout the day, but we might not notice them, or why we aren't in the present moment. So typically, we're in our heads, we're thinking, or we're distracted with sounds, or maybe something going on in the body that we like or dislike. Or maybe we're caught up in an emotion. Again, this is all normal, it's all common, it's all part of the human experience. What some writers call the whole catastrophe of living, if you will. However, we're trying to relate to all of this with a sense of poise and compassion and acceptance. So every time you note the distraction, that is the practice. And that's actually a good thing. We're awake, we notice it, and then we go back to the breath. So I'm going to leave you in silence now for a few minutes to practice mindfulness of meditation. Now bring your awareness back to the breath if you need to. Take a moment to reflect on your practice. Was there a pattern to your labeling? Were you noting thinking, listening, sensing, or feeling more than one of the other ones? And is that a pattern in your daily life? You're at the task at hand, maybe listening to a speaker, walking in the woods, cooking a meal, working on a project. And instead of being 100% there, you're caught up in something else. It's usually one of those categories. And just know that that's common. It's part of our process to wake up fully to the present moment without judgment, with compassion. Now let's return to our check-in for emotional balance and see if anything has changed. Just become aware of your physical body again. Does it feel strong or weak, energized or tired, tense, relaxed? And then go to that place of discomfort and give it a number again, and notice if the number is the same or different. Now become aware of your physical energy on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very little, 10 a lot. Give yourself a number. Is it the same or different from before? Now bring the awareness to the mind. Become aware of your mental energy on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being slow thoughts. And if they're about the past, suggest mild depression. 10, racing thoughts. If they're about the future, it can suggest mild anxiety. So give yourself a number somewhere between 1 and 10 and see if it's the same or different from before. Now become aware of your overall mental emotional state and choose a word that might best describe it now and see if the word is the same or different from before. And know that you have the skills and resources to choose as needed what might help you to return to a place of emotional balance. So going forward, what to do? Well, typically with these practices, they deepen. Our experience of them deepens with regularity. So maybe tomorrow morning, start with 5 minutes at a convenient time. Or work up to 15 minutes. For some, it's best first thing in the morning. For others, midday or in the evening. So you want to choose a time that you can be pretty regular with and at a time that's not too distracting. And take your seat, just be open to each day's experience and see what unfolds for you. And I wish you well with these practices. And thanks so much for joining me this evening. I hope it's been helpful, maybe a way to get you started if you don't already have a practice. If you need more support, you can always contact me, Michael Plasha, at plashayoga.com, and I'll do whatever I can to support you in your own practices. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you again